Hi, it's Peggy at Portraits by Peggy, and thanks so much for tuning in today. Today we are talking about swollen, bloated, and puffy. So today I have a special treat for you. I have a certified lymphedema therapist with me. Her name is Kathleen Lisson.
Hello.
And she has this book out, and we actually connected through YouTube. And she sent me her book, and it's a great book. I literally sat down. It came in the mail, about 5 o'clock, and I sat down and read it. I made dinner and sat and read it. It was a great book. A lot of my viewers know that I have lymphedema, so this is something that's super important to me. We're also going to do another video for people that don't have lymphedema but still have, puffiness, swelling, bloated, all those little things. But in this video, we're really going to talk to all of us lymphedema people. So I know I've had lymphedema for almost 19 years now. I was undiagnosed for 8 years, which is a lot of people's story. It's, something that doctors, unfortunately, don't know a lot about. Yeah. As a lymphedema patient, it's like golden when we can find a therapist that actually gets it,
Yes.
that can talk to us, that doesn't say, well, that's weird, it shouldn't hurt, or that's weird, I don't know. It's like, someone that really understands. So I'm just going to kind of give it to you. Trust me, I'll pop in. But I want you to talk about your book, kind of what your experiences are, and what you can, what advice you can give us people with lymphedema.
Super. Yeah, so my name's Kathleen Lisson. I'm a certified lymphedema therapist, and I practice in San Diego, California. And I wrote this book, Swollen, Bloated, and Puffy. This came from me being a certified lymphedema therapist and treating my clients and seeing how I had a lot of information that I wanted to give them, but I also wanted them to relax. And usually if you do manual lymphatic drainage treatment right, you go to sleep on the table. But I was finding that they were staying awake and asking questions and wanting to know.
Because nobody talks to us.
Yes. Yep.
Exactly.
And I wanted a resource to give to them, and what I saw online was there's plenty of books if you want to be like a lymphedema therapist and learn about lymphology. There's these real high-level textbooks, or else there's the mimeograph of the copy of the faded, exercises that you would give out at a lymphedema clinic. And I felt like neither of those things are really addressing what I wanted to give, and kind of my thesis on how people can treat their lymphedema holistically. I'm super lucky that I live in San Diego, and we're here in LA today because maybe along the coast there's a little more access and a little more openness in having more holistic care. So that's why the second half of the book is about stress reduction. It's about meditation and Qigong and Tai Chi and the power of laughter and the power of friendship. And maybe if you're in an 8-minute visit with your doctor, that doesn't come up. We were talking before we started to roll this video, and you were talking about how it wasn't until you went to more of a holistic doctor that you even truly understood why you should drink water.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, that if it didn't have a benefit to my body, I wasn't going to eat it. Yeah. And I think that's the kind of 180 that people can do on their treatment in order to go from doing the bare minimum or just what they've heard, and then actually having a complete holistic that honors your body and your mind and your spirit.
I know for me, it was just tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. Just tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. I was 28 when I first got lymphedema. I had 2 young kids. I laid in bed with my foot up for days and weeks sometimes. I missed out on games. I missed out on, play. I missed out on, a lot of things because I was in pain, and I wasn't diagnosed for 8 years. I just, they did everything lymphedema 101 you're not supposed to do. They gave me diuretics. They gave me, all these things that, if anything, made it worse. Yeah. Anyway, so, but that's the thing that really tears at my heart is I know there's so many people out there that struggle with their weight, that struggle with the swelling, that struggle because they don't understand how everything is tied in together. And stress is huge.
Yeah.
Stress is terrible for your health, period. But if you have lymphedema, stress is like one of the biggest triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning to be quiet and learning to release that stress and learning, I mean, that's free. You can't say I can't afford to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's something that you can do right now today to start, drinking water. I'm a water snob, but I drink about 100 ounces of water a day. I don't really drink many other things, so I feel like, hey, I'm not going to Starbucks and spending $6. I can be a water snob. I drink high alkaline water because I'm always trying to keep the pH balance up in my body. But just drinking water and it's just so. When I saw this book, and there's going to be links underneath to her. She also has a daily podcast.
Yes.
But there's going to be links. But what can you tell us? What's your number one thing you wish all of your patients knew and understood?
I focus on the fact that there's a relationship with someone else. I think that's what really benefits my clients, is that I see them so often, so I can check back in, and we can kind of brainstorm. If they have a difficulty, then let's look at all the options and just then move forward. And then there's a little bit of accountability. I don't like to you have to do this or else, but it's like, if you're going to make a new plan, then I'm going to come back the next time and it'll be like, oh, how'd that plan? If you have to wear a garment, how often are you wearing your garments? I have a client who had breast cancer, and she had it was a frustration with the garments. They're not sexy. They're disgusting looking, some of them. But it's like, so when can you wear your garments? And I think if you look online, it's like you're supposed to wear your garments 23 hours a day, or all day, every day. And if the difference is you wear your garments just underneath, a shirt when you're at work and no one's looking, and you have, a blazer on, and then you can wear them when you're inside the house and doing your errands. But if you want to go out to the movies and you want to go out on a date, then you don't wear the garments for those 3-4 hours. If it's between making a decision like that, or else it's all or nothing, and then they choose nothing because they don't want to wear that garment, having the conversation with someone, having the understanding that you're going to live your life with the lymphedema. You're not going to let it run you, and you don't necessarily have to do everything that everyone is telling you if you're just going to rebel and not do anything, if you're going to ignore it. Because I've seen a lot of clients where they ignored it for 3 or 4 years, and that's why they're coming to me, because they need to make that new start. So I'm helping them make that new start. And a large part of that, if it was just some specific advice that I could give to everyone, watching, is the deep breathing is huge. Like we said, the water, nutrition is huge. I'm not a specialist in nutrition, but I know from a lot of people that I've talked to, and a lot of what I see on the internet, is that there's just massive confusion. There's a bunch of diet books. There's been nutrition books for 20 years. And if we're still asking the question, well, what should I eat? It's a deeper problem we're not finding the solution yet.
Well, and I think everybody's body is different. And there's different things that your body, just whether you have lymphedema or not, maybe you can't eat avocados, maybe you can't eat pineapples, maybe those things irritate your body. So that's what makes it's so complicated, I think, because everybody's lymphedema is different. I have lymphedema in my left leg and in my abdomen. People that have it in their arm, maybe, it affects them differently. I have to be very careful. I mean, it's your immune system. I have to be very careful when I'm out. I'm always I'm always conscious of, if I have to go visit someone in the hospital, I'm like, oh my God, and I'm like doing all these, because, you don't want to put yourself in a compromising situation. If I'm going to drink, I don't ever drink beer or anything that's fermented, because I know that'll just bloat me up like crazy. I'll drink wine or whiskey, because that doesn't bloat me, as much. But, I've never been a big drinker, so that wasn't a huge sacrifice for me. But for some people, it's like, you mean I can't drink beer? And I'm like, well, do you want to walk the next day? Like, what's it worth to you? And I like what you said about, okay, so do you not want to wear it a couple hours a day? It's better to not wear it a couple hours a day than, not wear it at all. I was telling you, for years I wore my garment. I woke up in the morning, I showered, I did my manual lymph drainage, I put my garment on, went through the day, took my garment off, laid on my chi machine, did my manual lymph drainage, and wrapped with the multi-layer, and I slept in compression. So I was out of compression an hour and a half to 2 hours a day tops. For years and years and years. Now I don't sleep in compression. Now I only, but if I don't wear my garment, even if I'm just around the house, the first thing I do in the morning is put the garment on after my shower, because otherwise I'll start swelling, and then, then you've just got a garment on a swollen leg and your garment's tight and uncomfortable. And so, but I know that, I'm thankful. I'm going to put a little Juzo plug in here, because over the years, I've worn so many different garments, and they're a company that, in my opinion, are trying to make comfortable garments that you can have an active lifestyle in. If you've seen my pictures, I'll sometimes post on my Facebook and on my things, in my dress, in my sexy dress with my big old leg in a garment. I'm fortunate to have a man that adores me and thinks that I'm sexy even in my garment. But that was a big deal, because for years I wore baggy jeans and tennis shoes, because I didn't want anybody to see that garment. And finally one day I was like, okay, here it is. This is me, and I go to red carpet events. I go all over the place, sporting that Juzo garment, because, that's what makes it okay for me to walk. Because if I were to go out, especially if I even attempted to wear any kind of cute shoes, I wouldn't be able to walk for a week, so, but, if you're in a place that you can sneak it off for a couple hours, it's better to do that than to not do treatment. I like the accountability thing. I'm a real stubborn person, but it's always nice to have someone say, so, you told me you were going to, how's that going? And you're like, ugh, because in the back of my head, I know somebody's going to ask. So you want to be able to go, I did it. So the accountability is really good. So when you see patients, how often is the normal? Do you see them weekly, bi-weekly, every other day? What's your treatment plan?
The patients, when I have a client with a lymphedema diagnosis and it's ongoing, so the first thing is like you talked about, the struggle to get a diagnosis, and some are faster than others. And it's actually even worse if you have a fat disorder like lipedema. That struggle for diagnosis can last for a decade. But if you know the risk signs for lymphedema, which we can talk about, and then you go to your oncologist or physician and ask for a referral to the lymphedema clinic or a certified lymphedema therapist. Then you go through the complex decongestive therapy with it, which is the bandaging. And then once you're kind of graduate from that, and then you're fitted with a compression garment, for the rest of your life you still have lymphedema, and you can continue to care for yourself. So I have those clients that are continuing to care for themselves. So they see me twice a week. And I think it comes down to self-awareness. Maybe if it was one thing that's kind of the overarching for everything is self-awareness. And so that would be knowing how you feel when you drink beer, that the next day you're going to blow up, then it shouldn't feel that good to drink beer if like every time and it was just Halloween, so it's like eating 10-20 pieces of candy, you're gonna get an upset stomach. So like as an adult, you're like, I'm not gonna eat all that candy because like I'm just gonna feel horrible later. Right. So putting on the garment, because if you don't put on the garment, you feel bad, like you can see the change in your body.
Yeah.
And doing the lymphatic massage, because you see the positive change in your body, I think that sticks a lot more than reading my book or any book or listening to what a doctor tells you to do. And then if your only reason is because someone else told me to do it, like, then the second you're tired, you're not going to do it. But the self-awareness and knowing your own body is really going to help you.
I think I know my body
Yeah.
more than most average people, because I'm always like, I want to push it. I want to push it to the limit. So what can I do before I can't? So I'm very aware of, the amount of sleep I get, the amount of stress, is, around. But one thing you said is knowing the signs of lymphedema. Now, you had mentioned, hey, if you think you have lymphedema, go to your oncologist. Lymphedema doesn't just come. Yes. And that's the tricky thing, because mine was not caused from cancer. Mine was caused from injury. So for 8 years, I was just bounced around. Yes. And then even once I was diagnosed, my doctor knew nothing about it, which most doctors don't. No. Because, why learn about the lymphatic system? It's only like the biggest part of your immune system. Why teach that in medical school? That's silly. Anyway. But seriously, so what do you tell, what are your signs? What are your
So the signs of lymphedema, I would say a lot of them are subjective, so you'll feel them. So kind of screen yourself. And then this is a good time as we're going into the holiday season, where we're seeing friends and family, if they do have, because the majority of lymphedema that's outside of primary lymphedema, which is genetic, is acquired through treatment for cancer.
Either surgery, radiation.
Yes, it's the taking the lymph nodes. It's an insult to our lymph nodes that causes lymphedema. So the symptoms are, it would be in the quadrant. So if you had the lymph nodes were here, it would be any symptoms in this arm or down to the chest, and then if you had something in your leg, it would be the lower quadrant. So you're looking for, the first one's actually positive, but it's sad, is like I have all these wonderful veins and you can see in my hand, but if I had a little bit of swelling, it would actually look more youthful. So if the hand you're losing the definition in the hand, if the rings don't fit, so this could be either you see yourself, you're not wearing that favorite ring you like anymore, or your mother or aunt is not wearing a favorite ring anymore. And then if you have a tight sleeve like you have here, you'll notice that one of the sleeves is fitting tighter than the other one. Yeah. And then so you bought it and it was the same size, but now like one sleeve is always, it's hard to move in the shoulder area. If you're wearing like a tank top or a backless gown, your loved one could look at you from the back and maybe like one side of your torso is bigger than the other. So it would be, what was your sign? Where did the feet, the shoes weren't fitting?
Well, I literally woke up, had no symptoms, had nothing. I woke up and my
one morning
ankle was just huge, and I was like, and everybody's like, did you trip yesterday? Did you fall? What did you do? What did you do? And I'm like, nothing, and it hurt. And, I went to the doctor, and the doctor, as it went on, it was like, well, lymphedema doesn't hurt. I so hate that.
We just
your leg is 3 times bigger than the other leg, and you're telling me that doesn't hurt.
I just covered that. And I'll talk about another wonderful resource is people with lymphedema on the internet have like gotten into Facebook groups. Yeah. But one of the wonderful people who I can count as my friend, she actually has a genetic lymphedema, primary lymphedema, and so she just wrote a big blog post on how lymphedema does hurt. And in fact, it's really interesting that if you have a doctor, and I hate to be bad about doctors, but like a clinician, someone with medical expertise, can tell you lymphedema doesn't hurt because that's what perhaps they were taught in college.
Yeah.
But if if you showed a 3-year-old child a picture of a swollen foot, they'd be like, oh, that's an owie. Owie. That must really hurt. So it's like you have to kind of, with the treatment, you have to treat with the head, like with what I've learned and also with what I see and what I feel in my heart. Yeah. Which is that, of course, lymphedema hurts, but it doesn't have to hurt in the way that you can have someone with a positive lymphedema diagnosis and they don't have any pain. Right. That can happen, but unfortunately for a lot of people, that has been translated into
it doesn't hurt.
There's no pain with lymphedema, right. So it's just, I'm sorry, your arm's swollen, but
and that was at one point that was why they said, well, it's not lymphedema because lymphedema doesn't hurt. Yeah. And you're complaining about all this pain. Yeah. And, so not knowing what lymphedema was, I just kind of, disregarded that whole conversation for several years. And then when I was diagnosed, my first thought was, yay, there's a name for it, we can fix it. And then when I found out there's no fix for it, it was almost worse than not knowing. Yeah. Yeah. Because before I had that hope, we can fix it. So now it's just become, how do we manage it? How do we overcome it? How do we not let it control us? And I have a lot of friends, when I was first diagnosed, there was nothing on the internet. I mean, it was so, people now should be so thankful for all the information that's out there. There used to be nothing. And I had started a lymphedema group on Facebook. It's still there. I very rarely pop in, so sorry. But and I was, meeting people from all over the world, and we were comparing stories, and we're like, okay, well, my doctor said to try this, so we'd all try it, well, my doctor said to try this, and we'd all try, because there was just no information. Yes. Yeah. And just nothing. I think I was told there's one doctor that specializes in lymphedema, and he's up in the Bay Area, and you can't get an appointment with him. And it's like, well, thanks for telling me he exists, and it's like dangling the candy or whatever. But so it's good to know that there are people like you that will listen, that will talk, that will brainstorm. Okay, so this didn't work for you. Let's try that. Yes. Because a lot of it, I mean, I know like I said, I've been playing this game for years, and it's okay. Well, that didn't work. Yeah. Or you wake up one morning and because when I do get bad, like I'll get puffy everywhere, not just my leg. Like, I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh my God, my rings, now I've got it pretty much under control, but there were times that I would gain or lose 15 pounds overnight. And, obviously, so the scale's never been my friend. I just kind of ignore the scale. It's like, we don't need to talk. How are my clothes fitting? So it's, I'm very excited. Yeah. I was thrilled when I got her book. Yeah. I really recommend that everybody gets a copy of this book. And I also recommend that you check out her podcast every single day. It's short, 5 minutes. So while you're getting ready, you can listen to it while you're doing your massage, while you're taking care of yourself, while you're driving to work. Yeah. You're going to give me all that information. I'm going to put it below this in the link so that everybody can find you. What are your last words you want to say to us today?
Just get resources. There's resources on the internet, like we talked about, Facebook pages. Just type in lymphedema on Facebook, and you'll get some groups that you can join, and then you can ask questions. Because one of the heartbreaking things that, again, my friend who goes under the name Lymphy Strong, she has primary lymphedema, which means her father had it and it went back in her family. But if you have lymphedema, especially yours, that is from an accident, it's likely that you can't count as a friend any other person that you see every day that has lymphedema. It's very isolating. So the more resources that I can give you and the more resources that you can find, the more community that you can find.
Lymphedema used to be known as elephantitis. And that's kind of how I felt. I felt like I had this, it's not just a physical thing, but it's an emotional thing. So it's so important that you find a family. Yes. Find that support, because feeling alone will also cause stress and desperation, and you don't have to, for years and years, that's how I felt. I remember one day in San Diego, I walked into Costco and I saw a lady walk in that had her leg wrapped. And I ran over to her. I go, is that lymphedema? Oh my God, I have lymphedema. I'm like pulling up my leg, showing her my garment. And I was like, later in hindsight, I was like, okay, how weird was that? But I was so excited to see another human being that understood.
Yes, what you were going
So I and I'm sure she was like, oh my God, weird lady.
Yeah.
But, but it is a very isolating, a very emotional, because you've got this, whether it's your arm or whether it's your leg. I used to always play the game, would it be worse in my arm or would it be worse in my leg? And it just sucks altogether. I don't think there isn't a better. It's just, it sucks.
Yes, it does.
So, but you're not alone. There's a bunch of us out there. In fact, a lot of us, there's a lot of people that have lymphedema in the world.
Yes.
It's not as isolated as it was once thought.
No, it's not.
And so get resources, find a group, find support, and start following. I'm excited. I didn't know about her podcast, so I'm excited I'm going to join her podcast and start listening to you every day too.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
And, I'm going to say this, make sure that you go to my YouTube, subscribe if you haven't. Make sure you share this with everyone you know. Leave us comments. Tell me how awesome it was to have her on today. And go into the links and find her, stalk her, find her. You have a YouTube channel as well.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so find her all over the place. I'll put the links down and grab a copy of this book. As you can see, I read with a marker, so mine's all marked up already. So this is good stuff. All right, I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.